Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Fight Podcast, and you get to get a Solocast for this one. Originally, this would have been an episode of going into fight week and maybe talking about the excitement of this, it's time to go. All that hard work, all that training, time to, get ready to put it all out there. However, instead, I'm at the crib, made some good green juice here. But right now, I'm at peace with it. When I first found out that it wasn't going to happen, I definitely felt differently. So I kind of thought about wanting to talk about expectations. We see little memes and things on the internet where it's like, what I asked for versus what I got. And I always thought it's so funny because I really think that life's like that a lot. We visualize things that we want to happen, and when the time comes and we get there, sometimes it don't always look the way we visualize. But, at the end of the day, how could it really? Because we don't know the future and we don't know what the future looks like, So we're always doing something to help put our mind at peace in a way, I feel, when it comes to moving towards a goal or moving towards something in life that we want. We want to visualize it. We want to try to see it so that when that time comes, we know how we're going to respond. And it's really effective in many, many ways, right? Think about it when it's time to visualize walking into the cage, or visualize being in different situations. Man, my back's on the cage, or I'm on my back and I need to get up, or visualizing I just got rocked and I need to gain my composure, and visualizing like a lot of worst case scenarios and how we overcome it. I sometimes also like to beg the question of how often do we visualize the positive things happening, right? How often do we visualize things working out in our favor and seeing ourselves being successful? It's always equally important to keep our perspectives balanced and visualize the good things just as much as we visualize all the worst case scenarios, right? Because in reality is what we hold in mind manifests. I got that a quote specifically from this book called Letting Go. That, okay, I'm a little all over the place, but you know what? This is how it is. I did a book club, and we read Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender. And I remember that quote. It really stood out to me. I'm a big, if you watch my last Solocast, I talked all about just the power of our thoughts and how they shape how we feel and how we think and behave. And thinking about what it is that we hold in mind manifests. Is what we choose to focus on truly shows up in our bodies and how we feel. And we think it enough, we feel it enough, it's going to show up, and that's all we're going to see, and that's what we're going to experience. So it's important to keep that in mind when we're visualizing these things, or make sure that we're also visualizing the positives, and maybe spending more time visualizing the things the outcome that we actually really want to, right? But nevertheless, to say all of that, to say this, that sometimes what we visualize does not look or come to fruition. And when I think back, one of the biggest things that really just threw me for a loop, because I am a planner, was COVID. I invested a lot into moving my life to California, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to be training full time, about to just go on a run, rack up these wins, get into the UFC, and it's gonna be all she wrote. That was my final destination, and that was how it was going to be. And then I got there, and things didn't quite happen in that timeline, right? However, in those moments, I could choose to really sulk on it, but at some point we had to accept it. I did a lot of radical acceptance, right? Radically accepting that somehow I became the house mom, even though I left my teaching job to be less responsible for others and just worry about myself. But I ended up in a role like that. And that was a lesson that I had to learn, that like, hey, maybe I just need to embrace that. Maybe I need to accept that, one, maybe my personality just, I fall into these roles. And instead of resisting it and creating suffering, maybe I embrace it. But that happened, and it became not as a bad thing that I thought it would be when I look back in retrospect. And I just thought about all of the positive connections that I made during that time too. But then having to adapt in a way of being able to like say, okay, well, now I have to find a job, and now we have to move to a different county and X, Y, and Z, and now we're not able to fight, and there's no fight promotions doing anything. So having to adjust with that, and not just physically but mentally and emotionally, because so many of us like invest and pour a lot of our lives into what it is that we're doing, our careers, where we're trying to go, and we have to be able to still have part of us that is not completely solely invested in our careers, and remember that there's other parts of us as people as well. So during that time, I definitely had to step back and be like, okay, well, I have free time on my hand. What is it that I like to do? And I had to explore. I'm not gonna say I had to, I got to. Let me reframe that, because I really love that piece of like, man, I have to do this, I have to do that, to I get to. So I got to embark on different aspects of myself and different things that maybe I hadn't put enough energy into. Fast forward, I needed that time for that, because that time helped me to become more of a complete person. As athletes, I talk a lot about just how much we identify with our being an athlete and the performance and all of that, that sometimes it can be easy to lose yourself a little bit, like the person, the person who, you know, also has a family and also has feelings and also have other things in life that come up outside of that realm that impacts us as well. And when we become heavily focused into one part of us, some of the other pieces kind of fall by the wayside. So we find ourselves having to tune into one or other pieces every now and again, and that's okay. That's what happens. That's one of those what I was expecting to see myself just grinding and just training and just focusing on that, but in reality what I got was I spent more time reading and journaling and I worked at a assisted living, and I didn't see that happening, but I definitely got something from that too. But nevertheless, I had to make a decision to, you know, change my path and make a decision to say, hey, where I'm at is no longer feasible and it's not happening anymore. So now I have to rethink what life is about to look like. And that can be really scary, and or it could also feel like, well, I also feel like, man, maybe I'm taking steps back, but I'm moving back home because I'm trying to go on this trajectory upward, and now I feel like I'm having to step back. But in reality, one thing I've learned is that we're never really ever taking steps back. We're always taking steps forward. Because even if we're coming back to the same place where we were before physically, doesn't mean that we're the same person that we were when we were last there. Sure enough, if we stick to it and we keep striving for what it is that we want in our hearts, we'll create a new path. And that's what happened. Created a new path, right? And with the support of, like, I like to just call my tribe of helping me to get here. I'm in Houston now, and things have really evolved as well. And now I feel like I'm definitely a different person. Not totally different, but my mental is different. My headspace is different. And now I've created another puddle of different expectations for myself. Now it's like, I want to focus on this. I want to get my professional career going. I want to fine-tune certain skills that I haven't been able to work on too much, and now I get to do that. But then more time goes past, and I start thinking about the other aspects of my life, and I start thinking about expectations of what I expected at the age of 33. I've had conversations with my friends a lot about this. In my mind, I was going to be probably like married around 25, 26, and had first kid around 28, and then I was gonna be done having kids 33. You know, that was like my plan. And here I am, I'm 33, I don't have any kids. I just got a cat though. I officially became a cat lady. I was dreading that because I was like, oh, this is gonna be the means of, now I'm gonna have like 5 kids. I'm not gonna have 5 kids because really, honestly, I'm not a cat person, and how I have Little Storm was by like fate and destiny, I suppose, because he was living on my front porch, and I guess I've been living alone, and I was kind of getting to the point where I was like, I really enjoy my space by myself because I felt like I hadn't had that for a long time. But then I was also kind of like, man, I'm a little lonely though. So one night after a few margaritas, I made friends with the cat, and I think he liked me. So now here we are. I never expected that. I never visualized this to be what life looked like, right? And all these fine details. Once again, how could I? If I could visualize the future, then I would be really rich right now because I would be monetizing it, but I can't. But long story short is, right? I'm gonna probably say long story short a few times because it's just one of my segues, but it's not really gonna be a short story. It's gonna be long. I'm here now, and I've adjusted to some of those visions that I had of what life I thought was gonna look like. And that's that piece of like, here's what I expected, but here's what I got. And I talk about grief a lot in this aspect when it comes to these expectations, because in many ways we're grieving the loss of something that we visualized, that we became emotionally attached to, and so much of our identity and our behavior and our daily habits went into this vision that we had. And when it doesn't come to fulfillment, there is grief there. There's this grief of loss of like, this is no longer like even possible that it turns out to what I wanted it to be. And if you're not aware of the, some of the different emotions of stages of grief, there's denial, then there's anger, and then there's bargaining, then there's depression, and then ultimately the goal is to get to acceptance. Some of the things that I don't talk about openly, like to everyone, is my stage of bargaining when it comes to like my athletic career. Because while I have been fighting now for going on 9 years, I've been competing in sports after college for 11 years and collecting and thinking about the things that I would like from life. Like, hey, I don't have kids. Do I want kids still? I don't know. So I'm having these these little thoughts of questionings, and I'm wondering like, okay, my timeline is kind of off. And there's no pressure. I'm not going to, I've decided that, one, there won't be any kids until I can actually afford them. Those things, them kids are expensive, if y'all ain't know. But at the same time, I'm also thinking about all these other things of like, how much longer is it gonna take to get to where I'm going, wanting to go, right? Where I'm working to go. I'm like, man, this is really taking a lot longer. So this expectation of like, just banging out 5 fights in a row, being, getting there, that hasn't been my story. And so it's been a lot of back and forth with that. And I always have to find myself coming back to asking myself what it is that I really want. And that's also connected with who I am. And I'm an athlete. I've always been an athlete and I love to compete. But underneath that, I love to move my body. I love working out. I love being fit. And for so long, I've realized I got disconnected from that because I started just doing these actions for the pursuit of the goal instead of the pursuit of what I care about the most, which is my health and wellness. And fighting exposed that part of me to me. And one of the things behind this podcast of why I thought about doing this in the first place is because of the topic of what is it the stuff that you don't see, on the surface. And I would have conversations with other friends of women fighters, and we talk about like, oh, you're fine, you're just so fit and you're in shape, so like you're really good, and your health is because I look a certain way. But did it really mean that I was truly like taking care of myself in the healthiest way? And fighting definitely exposed some of my unhealthy relationships, like with food, and my unhealthy relationships with coping when I'm stressed, with like drinking and other stuff, And it was like a up and down roller coaster of being so preoccupied with getting a number on the scale. And it was less about how I was getting there, which just only exposed the fact that I'm not a nutritionist, and the way that I've been eating for many years doesn't necessarily mean that was the healthiest way, because I used to be able to eat just whatever and, stay looking a certain way because I ran so much. But I thought it could never happen to me. But yeah, I guess the body will start to change. And I'm like, damn, now I have to actually pay attention to this, right? And that was been hard because now it's like all of these behaviors and how I used to function, they can't exist at the same time while I'm doing what I'm doing. And so having to face that, and it's been a very kind of long journey with it, because I realized that I work really hard and I get stuff done, but the ways that I've been coping when I am stressed are very counterproductive to maintaining like a good, healthy balance. So the irony of ending up working at an eating and recovery center where there's so much preoccupation and anxiety and depression and stress around how your body looks, and then manipulating how your body looks by eating less or not at all, or eating more when you're feeling bad about it, or guilt, and just all these other pieces. And then we live in such a very critical world around how we look, and it can be a recipe for disaster in a sense. But you never know like how a person truly feels about themselves just by looking at them. And through having so many conversations with so many women fighters and realizing like, yo, I feel the same way. It's crazy. It makes me feel a little crazy in my head that I'm like having a debacle about some of the ways that I feel about myself. And it's been like a real straight emotional roller coaster, low key, high key. But one thing that I have always felt, as far as like my other profession of counseling, is that as I learn so much more, and then it's like one of those things when you know better, you're supposed to do better. Like that always sticks out to me. And so, and then I'm also in the field of helping. So I'm like, how do I give advice about something and I don't take that advice? And that always stuck with me. So I really been working on practicing what I preach. And change is never just you just do it and it just automatically just boom, it's there. And like, no, it's difficult. We're rewiring our brains, how we think, how we respond, how we react. We're digging deeper and trying to find where in the world did these beliefs about myself even like start and begin, and having to like rewrite that and choose to do different things outside of our norm. And it takes time. And it's like 4 years since I've been in California, and I'll always like to say that every fight I get better, in the sense of I don't go like bashing a whole bunch of food after weigh-ins because I've deprived myself so much. Now, I guess I'm almost like really fed up with the cycle that I'm like, all right, I have to do something different. And I think I'm finally in a better place to where I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this because of the fight. I'm doing this because of my health. And it has taken some time to even get there to that point. And that's okay. It's about the journey, right? Because it really is. Because if we decide to wait to be happy when we get to our destination, like, we're going to be unhappy a lot. And so we have to find a way to embrace the daily grunt work, the ups and the downs, you know. And then instead of being more critical with ourselves, lend some compassion to ourselves in those moments when we're really working to try to make changes, positive changes, that is. And another expectation that maybe I visualized and had was that, I don't know, somehow I was just gonna like have this support. Well, that's what it was. It was the piece of the relationship. I realized how much having someone around me all the time who motivated me also helped to keep me on track. So when I didn't have that anymore, and the reality was, it's like, nobody's getting you out the bed but you. Nobody's telling you no to not eat that but you. Nobody's telling you, you know, it comes down to me. And I realized how easy I let up on myself about some things. And through the work of therapy and talking about boundaries, it's like, man, how do I expect to maintain a boundary with someone, or establish a boundary with someone, tell someone don't treat me this way, when I can't even do that for myself? When I can't even say, Brittney, no, you're not, we're gonna stick to the diet, we're gonna stick to the plan, and then I go and flake on the plan like the next day, or I'm at the store and I see some cookies and I go get it anyway. Like, I just broke my own word. So now I'm losing trust in myself that I can even do what I say that I'm gonna do. So actually learning how to really do that work inside of yourself without the influence of someone else, it is a superpower. You know. But I'm not saying that you're doing it, you have to do it by yourself, but just know that you always get the first and last say. You're always going to be the person who chooses those things. And I just feel like stronger when no one else is around. I choose to do what I know is right for myself and for my health. And that's the point of this Solocast, honestly, is we're all a work in progress, and we all have our things. And even though I'm only just touching on just the topic of just consuming things for comfort and pleasure, and working on eating healthier, it's so many things. It's whatever that thing is that you know that it's holding you back from being that much better as a person, then being that much happier and healthier as a person, that's that own little your little spot that you're working on. And it's always different for everyone, right? And for me, that has been one of my biggest and hardest things that I've been working on, is, I guess, saying no to some of those things. But I know and I realize that when I'm able to say no to myself and choose the thing that I know that I'm going to wake up the next day and feel happy about, it's going to be a snowball effect as I say no to a lot of other things that don't serve me. Not just things, but even people, right? I won't allow certain people to be in my space or have access to me that isn't conducive to my health, right? And that can be hard, especially when it comes down to like family. This conversation has come up a lot as well. Setting boundaries within your family. I've been the person that many people go to for help. I love helping. Obviously, that's my whole career. But then I'm like, how can I keep helping in a situation where I'm pouring out of a cup that isn't full enough? Or I'm pouring into somebody else's cup and they got holes in the bottom. So, I'm like, it doesn't mean that I have to, like, the answer is always cutting someone off. I mean, sometimes you gotta cut people off, but that's not always the answer. It just means that I need some parameters. I'm only willing to be able to go this far. And that's what I got. And being able to set that and then being able to uphold it in still a very, respectful way, it is work. And it's difficult in the beginning, but I will say that being able to do that is also just another practice of loving yourself. Everything literally starts with the relationship with yourself. How you would like someone to love you or treat you literally starts with how you allow yourself to love and treat you. You want someone to accept you as a person, accept your little quirks, your flaws, and all of that. But do you accept you? And if you don't, then that's where you gotta start, right? Man, how do I look at myself and be like, yeah, I accept this thing that I've always didn't really used to like? How do I start to like love the parts of myself, or even just like the parts of myself that maybe I didn't before? Because I need to be able to have some acceptance of myself if I want to feel truly happy. And referring back to that book, Letting Go, we talked about the low vibrational emotions, and then we talked about some of those higher vibrational emotions, and love and peace and enlightenment and acceptance are all those high vibrational emotions. But in order to get there, we have to let go of some of the lower ones, some of the, the depression, the anger, the fears. If we're holding on to that, those are really heavy. They're holding us down. We have to be able to let some of that go so that we can find ourselves to be in a space where we're accepting and we operate from love. Because when we do, there's not many things that can disturb our peace. And honestly, whether we're grinding for goals and achieving things, if we don't have peace within, eventually we're going to self-destruct, and it's going to destroy all of that hard work and all of the things we've been working for anyway, right? So we have to make sure that we can cultivate a happy, peaceful place within ourselves so that we can strive for different things and have the things that, you know, we feel that are coming out, or that are meant for us. And also being able to recognize that life is meant to be lived in the now. That's where happiness is. Today, in this moment, the daily things that we do, we need to wrap our arms around it and embrace it, because the future isn't right now. And we also don't know what the future truly will bring. We can work towards creating the future, but the way that we do that is by the things that we do right now. We can't let the past be fixated on our mind, for then we're constantly in the woulda, couldas, and shouldas, or beating ourselves up about something that we can no longer change. But we can look at the past and see what we can do in the now to improve from that. But all in all, where we need to exist the most is right here in the present and the now. And fall in love with it. And do the daily things that pour into us in a positive way that fills our cup, so that when we go out into the world, whatever that is that we may do, that we move from a space of peace and happiness. You know, those low vibrations, the anger, the depression, we put that out there into the world too when we go out there. And, you know, it's a domino effect. So the more of us that rise out of those low vibrational emotions and rise into higher happiness and love, the more people that's going to be spreading and putting it out there as well. We all know the quote, hurt people hurt people. Well, loving people love people. So which one would you like to spread? I did a whole little ramble of some things, but all of this that I said could have been something I wrote in my journal too. So I'm also an advocate for journaling. Just being able to have a space to process your thoughts and your feelings and things like that, gain some clarity. Or if you like to talk and you don't like to write, having a safe person, your friend or whoever it is that you feel safe with to talk to. Or obviously I'm a therapist, so if you need that unbiased opinion to have that space to talk and process through things, that's also another space too. This is the work that we must do. And it's a gradual release program, so maybe you need support in the beginning, but eventually you find your way and you find your swing, and we know how to roll with the punches when life hits, because it does. But all in all, I want to look back on life and say, hey, I was happy. Happiness didn't come from any of the physical things that you had around you, but the happiness that you felt right here. I hope you enjoyed my little rant. I hope that maybe you reflect and think about any of these pieces that I talked about, and maybe how it applies to you, and just one little thing that you can do on a daily to pour into yourself into a positive way. And keep fighting on, keep loving on, and stay tuned to the next episode.